Hello, I hope you're doing well. This video is a day in my planner / journals. I have gotten a few comments saying that people enjoy these sorts of videos, and I think it really helps show how I kind of divide up my journaling time throughout the day. I don't really have a strict planning routine, but because I do have like a general daily routine for other parts of my life, my planning just kind of fits in as part of that routine as well. So yes, usually every day after I make my second cup of coffee and I am waiting for the coffee to cool, that is when I start planning for the day. And I typically start with the Hobonichi Cousin daily pages. This is where I usually write down my to-do list for the day and anything that is coming up in my life. This was actually a pretty boring spread. I was really busy, so I didn't have much time to decorate or make any doodles, but I decided to go with this orchid pinkish purple colorway. For the personal life section, I don't typically actually make to-do lists, but rather just like little bullet points. And I don't know how to explain it, but I think just in my head, a lot of personal life things aren't really to-do list items, but rather just like notes and little reminders. For example, on this day, I was going to go grocery shopping, and I felt like I needed some other protein source apart from eggs. So I just made a bullet point saying, buy some other protein. I feel like this doesn't really make sense as a to-do list thing to check off, but it's just like a reminder for myself. For myself, I find that to-do lists are a little bit more helpful than my schedule and like time blocking my day. So that is why I usually start the day with a to-do list, and then typically after the gym or I get some work done, I then go back to the weekly section of the Hobonichi Cousin and actually schedule out my day. Again, the spread wasn't too decorative, so usually when I'm not really in the mood to doodle anything or like have some elaborate theme, I go for like these bigger stickers. This is a really pretty foiled fountain pen sticker, and I think it just kind of draws your attention, and it's like a low effort way to add some decoration. And unlike last year, I am not doing daily prompts. I'm still answering prompts almost every day, but I'm just not being so rigid about it, and it just depends on how I feel. This morning, I didn't really have any personal updates, so I decided to just start off the day with a prompt. I used to publish my daily prompts on the website every month, and they are actually still on the website. If you go to resources and then blog posts, there should be a post about daily prompts. I did stop publishing them for this year, and on the page I have a little message about why. The gist is I am just like trying to reduce my workload. But yeah, I'm still just using my 2025 prompts, and if it's like a prompt that I don't really like, then I just go to the 2024 prompts and I kind of pick and choose. And it's actually pretty fun because I get to think back to this time last year and what my answer was, and it makes me kind of reflect on how I have changed and grown in the past year, and also how like I have maintained certain perhaps values or something. I'm not too sure what I'm going to do for 2027. I know it's still kind of early to think about that, but I feel like us planner and journaling people, we just like always think about the next year. I might go back to doing journaling prompts and publishing them again if I feel like I can get a handle of my work-life balance, but no promises. I just feel like I will eventually get bored if I keep redoing the same 2025 and 2024 prompts over and over again. So we will see. Anyways, just to make this a little bit more interesting, I decided to use a fun ink for this writing. I'm using the Robert Oster Dusky Pink and also the Kaweco Sport fountain pen in a medium nib. Every time I see the label and the name Dusky Pink, I'm like inclined to think dusty pink, which still kind of makes sense. It's like a muted pink. But yeah, dusky pink definitely sounds a little bit better. And again, this morning I didn't really have any personal updates, so I just ended off the planner session there, and I believe I just went to the gym, or I got started with work. Alright, then a little bit later I went back to fill in my schedule for the day. I used to plan this like every other day, so I would plan for the day of and the next day at the same time. But lately I have been more so doing this like every morning. I think my schedule and daily events have been pretty like unpredictable because my energy levels are also kind of volatile lately. I don't know if I'm going crazy, but ever since the skin condition that started last summer, I just feel like my energy levels have been all over the place, and I feel it's like triggering something within me that's like draining my energy. I don't know anything about medicine, so that is just like my uneducated guess. But yeah, like one day I can finish an entire washi tape and maybe 1 or 2 sticker sheets and 1 or 2 vinyls while keeping up with like social media and replying to emails. And then another day I would just like barely be able to keep up with emails and I won't be able to finish any design work. And I just like can't really find a pattern. But yeah, anyways, I did not mean to go on that tangent. Basically, the point is I don't really schedule my days too far in advance anymore, apart from like appointments and meetings that I absolutely have to go to. Then here I'm working on the Hobonichi weeks, which is my health and fitness record keeper, and this is very low maintenance, really quick to do. I just typically fill out the record for the day before and sometimes the day of. On this day, oh right, so I actually didn't go to the gym in the morning, I went in the afternoon, so at this time I didn't fill it out for Friday yet because I had not gone to the gym at this point. For the actual workouts, I can pretty much recall what I did for the past 2 to 3 days, so it's not too big of a problem to fill it out retroactively. For steps and running, so I wear a Fitbit, and there is a Fitbit app that keeps track of all of my steps. And then for running, I use the app Runna, which is like the program that like trains for half marathons and marathons. And even if I'm not training for the race, I still use the app to track all of my running and pace, so I can just go back to that and fill it out. I also filled out my daily highlights and then the habit tracker. Currently I'm tracking the cups of coffee I drink every day, taking some medications which are different from the ones that I track in my Hobonichi Cousin. The fire is to track how inflamed I feel with my hives, but not hives, skin condition. It's still undiagnosed, so I have no idea what to call it. The sparkles are for whether or not I get ready for the day. It's kind of silly, but yeah, whether or not I do my skincare and also whether or not I go on my phone before bed. And then very quickly, I'm going to work on my reading journal and my commonplace journal. Now, this is where I want to say, like, this is not like an everyday occurrence. If you watch my planners and journal updates every month, you will see that I actually make very little progress in these 2 journals, especially lately as I've been rather busy. But on this day, I just happen to have a little bit more time, so I am filling out my reading journal with a few quotations that I saved from the Book of Disquiet, and I'm using my TWSBI Eco fountain pen, extra fine nib, and I believe this is Robert Oster Coffee Monster. I have been reading this book, I think, for maybe over a year at this point. So yeah, you will see that the writing has all different shades of brown because I either no longer have a pen inked up with that color, or I just like forget which color I used before. So yeah, it kind of looks a little bit messy, but it is what it is. I do have a video all about my reading journal, so I won't say too much about this. Here I'm just writing down quotations, but sometimes I will write down my thoughts or opinions. Then for my commonplace journal, this one was really boring. I was taking some notes about 3D printers and just like, I guess, manufacturing techniques, and honestly I just like ran out of time, so there were a few more bullet points that I didn't write down in the previous session. So yes, here I was just like quickly finishing off this entry. This is just a Leuchtturm B6 dotted journal, and for the margins I just draw it in with my pencil, and I'm using my Sailor Pro Gear with a medium nib and the new Robert Oster Murky Pond Water ink, which is coming out in April. And then for the main writing, I'm using again the 괘ʏᴜᴜ with Robert Oster I was about to say dusty pink again, dusky pink. by the way, like my commonplace journal is where I like jot down a lot of notes, and I don't want to give off the impression that I'm like super smart or anything. Like these diagrams and stuff, they look really, I don't know, academic, but I'm honestly just like referencing the material and copying it down in my notebook. Alright, then last but not least, I am finishing off the day with my Hobonichi Cousin daily pages again. Sometimes my last entry is like right before bed, and that could be like 2 in the morning. Other times it could be like a reasonable evening hour, like maybe 8 p.m. And sometimes I just ended off like in the afternoon. And this was the case. I wrote my last entry probably at around 5. I will say in this case, I did purposely do that because I knew that the lighting would be terrible in the evening. So I just like made the conscious decision to write my entry then. And I made this like little thinking emoji doodle because I think I was just like struggling with the idea of giving myself grace and taking things slow versus like being disciplined and kind of wanting to set the bar high for myself. Anyways, I won't get into that. That is basically it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you take care. Bye!